Hello, everybody. My name is Jill Renee Feeler, and welcome to today's podcast. I'm very happy to be here with you today, and I'm excited for what comes through. I don't know what we're going to do. But before we get started, let's just take a couple nice deep breaths and help us. It's sort of a connection exercise, helping us connect to ourselves. Okay, nice deep breath. Close your eyes if you can. Just relax. A nice deep breath. And we would like you to imagine that your body is contained in this bubble of energy that is invisible and intangible, but very real. So there's this bubble of energy that you are amidst within in your humanness. There's tech there, technology that is otherworldly and beyond worlds, beyond space, beyond time. And it helps support you. It's additional layers of inspiration, problem solving, self-soothing and self-calming, radicalness. There's just a lot more available to you than just your 5 human senses and just the tissues and the matter of your humanness, and this bubble of energy that sort of comes with you into this reality. It's yours, and you can use it in a whole bunch of different ways. You don't even have to understand it. It is there, and it is a real part of who and what you are. And it's part of your vehicle, actually, when you die, and you drop your bodysuit, your humanness, your body shuts down, stops working, and this bubble of energy is part of what holds your eternal consciousness and your human consciousness that you're operating from now, and they interact in a beyond this world experience, okay? And you don't even need drugs. How about that? Wonderful. Okay. So maybe just letting yourself play with the idea that there's part of you that's beyond your shoulder blades and beyond what you see in the mirror. This is so real. It's so true. And maybe part of you is sort of loving this idea. Okay. Very good. Before we end this connection exercise, I would like you to imagine that your humanness is right in the center of that energy field that we talked about. Okay, that you're all the way in your bodysuit. Wiggle your toes a little bit. Wiggle your fingers. Maybe touch your elbows, touch your shoulders, touch your nose, and just helping you feel. Some of us in an experience like this, there are some of us that tend to want to be out of our bodysuits. We want to pretend we're not human, we don't like our lives, we don't like the human race, we don't like that we're a part of it. So we tend to slide as much as we can, or maybe quite consistently. Our consciousness slides out of our humanness, and then we're sort of vacant in our humanness, and that's not a great way, in our opinion, to go through your life, okay? Doesn't work so well that way. Plus you lose stuff all the time, and you're probably late for everything. Okay, it's good to show up for you. All right, wiggle those toes just a little bit more. Very good. Nice deep breath again. Okay. Nice. Okay. All right, open your eyes if you haven't already. And please, I hope you have a smile on your face. Put a smile on your face if you don't have one there already. And let's get started. So what are we going to do? For those of you that are new, I have a gift I realized within probably about 10 years ago. I come up with these super good ideas and wisdom and messages that feel like they're from another level of me that is beyond space, beyond time, that I couldn't take credit for as human Jill, even if I wanted to. It's not based on things I've read. It's not based on what I've studied or what somebody else has taught me. It literally is divine inspiration. And I don't think this is that unique, but I do believe we're in an age of darkness on here, on the planet. And something like this feels very, weird and foreign. And yet the best artists, the best inventors, they're constantly getting divine inspiration. The best authors are inspired with things that are from another level, I would say, of themselves. And this is where genius comes from. We all have access to a level of divine inspiration and wisdom that is beyond our humanness. So I will demonstrate, I guess. I'm not intending to like, this is how to do it, but this is how I do it. And hopefully you'll enjoy what comes through. And if you don't, that's fine. I'm okay. I'm not trying to be everything to all people, and I'm not trying to make everybody happy, but my intention is to help you be a better version of yourself. Because I believe that one way that humanity can move forward in a noticeable, meaningful way is for all of us to take ourselves more seriously, to feel more responsibility for who and what we are and the choices that we make. Being more conscious of the choices that we make, even in what we say or don't say, what we say yes to or what we say no to. And also that by feeling more serious about that you matter and that there's more to you than meets the eye and there's more to you than just your physicality, that there will be more genius on the planet. There will be more actual solutions to real problems. And maybe a little less arguing and maybe less self-hate, maybe less self-sabotage, maybe less disconnection, maybe less harming each other, maybe a lot of goodness. Some good for dialing down any sort of like harmful behaviors on Earth. And I'm really excited also about simultaneously dialing up the level of not just goodness, but let's say greatness or even gloriousness that humanity has access to. Okay? There we go. Let's do this. I have no idea what we're talking about. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I have a bit of an idea. I was freshening up my face and putting some makeup on about 8 minutes ago. And I had some ideas of what we'll talk about today. So here we go. All right. Yeah, let's start there. 2 times in the past day, I have had 2 people that I respect greatly. Well, let me just give you what happened. There was an Instagram post by a dear friend of mine. I absolutely love her. And it was a picture of like a pentagram, which I immediately got because that's not my thing. I'm not into that, and I do have a maybe programmed, but a bit of an aversion to it. But I know there's a lot of vibrational positives and negatives to everything, so I don't know a lot about that, and I'll admit that. Anyway, but her post said something like, I have a dark side. And then it was like, and you do too, ... And she was sort of, anyway, so that was interesting. So I just kind of, okay, okay. And then also today, I was listening to a podcast from Dr. Jordan Peterson. By the way, something is going on with his voice. He sounds like he's crying, and I don't watch the YouTube videos, but I listen to the podcasts. And in the most recent 2 interviews from his podcast, there's a shakiness in his voice, so I don't know what's going on with him, but I hope he's okay physically. He's not normally a tearful guy, so from what I've experienced, I've never met him, but anyway, it was just kind of his voice quivers like somebody that is crying, and it was anyway. That's not what I wanted to talk about, though. I apologize. He was. And I think Nietzsche, I didn't study Nietzsche, but I believe it comes from Nietzsche and also a lot of organized religions, this idea that humanity is suffering, Earth is suffering, and it's inescapable, and it's what life is about suffering. And I'm just like, oh my God. So let's offer another perspective, shall we? Okay. Does everybody have a dark side? Yeah. And my response is, so what? Because why isn't, well, I know it's a rhetorical question, but it's interesting how readily we are invited into like our dark side and commiserating on levels of human suffering and that bonds us together, apparently, when there's a completely different alternative, which is, why not invite you into your gloriousness? Why not I'm divine and so are you, ... with no like, cue the spooky music kind of thing. But I get it that everybody's got their flavor of ice cream, but that's so not my flavor of ice cream. And is there human suffering? Yeah. Is there suffering on earth? Yes, but that's not the purpose of life, right? It's such a simplified notion I believe they're trying to explain and admit that there is suffering here, but then by trying to take that leap of assessment of source God or some higher level of intelligence knows that there is suffering and likes it, and this is the purpose of human life. It's just like, F that. I mean, number one, it's not the purpose of life, but I just want to really be super clear right here with you that anyone, you included, can decide that that's the purpose of life. And guess what? It will highly affect your life and how you look at everyone else's life. So it matters. These generalizations, these statements of fact and truth and declarations, which aren't even presented as theology, they're presented, and not even as philosophy, they're presented as an emphatic, this is what's going on. And those that don't feel a sense of personal empowerment to question an authority, any authority, will just kind of go, okay, damn, that sucks. I better get some help with this. You know what I mean? Versus just like, well, what if that's not true? I want a second opinion, right? So for those that naturally question everything, I hope you still get something out of this message because you and I are more similar. But I do want to, express my compassion and concern for those that just readily accept some of these generalized, huge, relevant, life-altering statements as fact and their truth versus just someone else's theory or philosophy about what might be going on in this reality, okay? So I probably don't have the same level of authority or expertise for you that those individuals or somebody else that you've listened to, but maybe, just maybe, I have something interesting and valuable and insightful for you to offer you that could change your life. What if you're glorious by birth, by divine nature? What if all life is? And what if while we are in a human experience, it is very challenging, especially in an age, a season of unconsciousness or suppressed consciousness, like you and I are in this year, this era of human race, era of Earth. Look up the Kali Yuga cycles, right? There's golden ages, there's dark ages, and there's iron ages and all these things, and it's a wheel that turns. That I do believe is true. No one can prove it's true, but that does explain a lot to me in terms of what I see and observe in this world, what I sense in this world, and other ways that I'm shown through my divine inspiration how things work, okay? So we are in an age, we're in a cycle of that wheel that turns, a big, big wheel, right? 26,500 years or something to that effect type of wheel. We're in an age where truth is very hard to come by. Things are presented as truth and fact that are not actually truth and fact. To me, we have so many examples. You can probably think of easily a list of like, yeah, that's true. Like examples of where you have noticed that that's true in your life. It's unfortunate and yet understandable given the dark age that we're in, that there are so many invitations into the lowest levels of humanity, the most basic, sufferable, or is it insufferable, whatever, versions of human life. I get it. I'm annoyed by it, that's the predominant invitation into beingness. And maybe, just maybe, that my annoyance with that is actually also my eternal self-energy that's annoyed by that. Is that, would you just get in there? can we just make a human, and let's call her Jill, and she'll offer another voice of what the fudge is going on Earth, so that we can maybe pump up some glory while it's so easy to pump up the dark side of humanity and the dark side of Earth and life and, all of that. Because I know that throughout my life, I've had this sort of inner truth that there's goodness also in all things, a natural goodness, a natural brightness, a natural worthiness of all life. I don't think that was taught to me. I don't remember my parents preaching that idea. I do remember being in Christian churches, whether it was, congregational churches in Austin, Minnesota, or a Presbyterian church. We occasionally visited both. I didn't go through confirmation or anything like that. And then as an adult, I went back into Christianity by choice because I felt so many blessings in my life, and it felt like more than luck. And I wanted to honor that glory to what I felt was a higher power that I call God. So for me, I stepped back into Christianity and went really, really hard in it, studying the Bible intensively and things like that. And that's where, and I met some Baptist Christians and things like that. And that was my probably first sort of taste of this attachment to this idea of original sin, and that, we're born bad, and that, without Jesus, we're all screwed, and that kind of thing. And it didn't feel right to me, but I tried it on as an identity. I tried it on as a truth of, okay, let me see how this feels, if this is true. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the way, with that filter of truth, I was looking at my fellow humans and viewing my fellow humans. To me, it felt less godly. And I don't care what you call it. To me, that's not how I imagine Yeshua was. I don't think you could be the healer that Yeshua was, and the model of light that he was, and the model of righteousness also that he was, if you had that present day Christian filter on. So they think they're right? The organized Christian religion are sure that they seem sure that they're right. I think they're wrong. A lot of us I've noticed in a group like this that would listen to something like this also sort of has been willing consistently to sort of question that line of thinking, and therefore question that authority, because it is the Christian church, and all of it is a sense of authority for morality and things like that in this present age, which happens to be dark. So maybe you can put that together, right? and maybe like, no, it makes sense, right? Yeah. Okay. So your willingness to sort of question that and say, well, that doesn't seem right to me. You can't have proof. This can't be proven one way or the other, even in the afterlife, by the way. Damn it. So there's a sense of, you just have to kind of go with your gut or make a decision one way or the other is probably wise. But there are many benefits that I've experienced, I know, stepping away from that version of Christianity and staying strong in my inner sense that there is a completely different way of knowing also the good side of humanity, and the geniusness that can bubble up within a human, divine inspiration, divine healing. And so if some of you are more atheistic, then take out divine, whatever. wherever you think it comes from is fine with me, but it's good. And it can be great, and it can be glorious. I give that credit to our source energy, our eternal self nature. But that's my preference. That's what helps me. It's not that it helps me, it makes sense to me, even rationally. It's like, oh yeah, there's no way all of this. I'm looking out at my beautiful yard, at these amazing trees, and I'm listening to Samson breathing and, resting next to me. I'm imagining all the functions in my body. This doesn't come from chaos. This, to me, in my line of not just my human experience, but the way my mind works, this would be impossible from randomness. There is a natural order to things that leads to a level of beauty and wonder and majesty and magic that to me can only be attributed to a source of energy that is just absolutely brilliant. Okay? So, what if all the seeds of that sort of natural order, let's do this. Yeah, I like that. Naturally divine order. What if those seeds and initial matter of naturally divine order, or naturally glorious order, naturally majestic order, is actually a framework that is within not just all life, but also within you? And what if by having a belief system that you also have a dark side and that will invade I want to use toxify. I want to use toxic as a verb, and that's probably not right. Sorry, I'm sort of hung up on this word here for a second, but it feels like it matters. Pollute. There we go. I like that. That this dark side that's within you and with all life, that it pollutes the gloriousness. It's just like, well, that's a pretty heavy load to bear, because then if that's your truth, if that's your belief, if that's your operating system, you're going to do everything you can possibly to try to get rid of the darkness, because you're acting as if it's a problem to your gloriousness. But what if it's not? What if, you've got a dark side. On your bad days, you're pretty bad. Maybe not horrible bad like breaking laws, but you don't like yourself very much, and you're probably not that great to be around, and people may run and hide when they sense that dark cloud about you, right? What if that is more a matter of circumstance, and that you did have a bad day, or you're not feeling your best, or you, what if that's more situational than fundamental to who and what you are? What if your gloriousness and your best self, the levels of you that you like best, or even levels of you that are so great that you're really hoping they're there, and you want to give yourself more time and space, like a portal within yourself, to further sort of unleash even this genius within you, okay? I know from my experience, and I know from my divine connection, that the unleashing of glory, the unleashing of glory within you and with all life is not dependent on the removal of that darkness. Part of you that may be evaluating whether that's true or not, I would offer, there's no proof available to you. Not real proof. So what if it's just a decision that you make? Which do you want to be true? I definitely know which one I want to be true. And I know that, I love my life. That doesn't mean that everything's gone my way, for sure. Doesn't mean that I don't have challenges and problems and things that totally freak me out and make me scared, right? On some levels of myself. But I think in general, part of the reason that I do love my life and I'm excited about not just my future, but the future of the human race, is because of this truth that I claim personally for myself, that all life has inherent goodness, that there's always the possibility for no matter how depraved and, sadistic somebody may seem, that there's a version of them in there that they could fight for, that they could choose to be, that we would all just stand back and go, wow, look at you. What a transformation. And maybe they wouldn't need to invite you to their church afterwards, right? They wouldn't feel the compulsion to save you. They would maybe feel the compulsion like I do to want to celebrate you. And what is naturally good about you, and wanting to see that in you, wanting to celebrate that in you, while not needing to discount or disregard or ignore or pretend that it's not there, that sort of dark side, whatever that is. So to me, it's not a battle between good and evil. It's a sense of, where are you placing the emphasis of power? This world couldn't be as beautiful as I think it is in many ways without a sense of natural operation of goodness and glory, and things that, if we just get out of the way, work really, really well, right? If we don't mess it up or try to fix it, or there's some things that just work well on their own. I think of the example of like fires and forest fires. On the surface, forest fires are just like, oh my God, that's tragic. And obviously there is a tragic element to it. But also that's how the forests got there, right? For any of us that love trees and love forests in general, a healthy forest is, there's cycles and ages to it, but every single one of those trees, as I understand it, the spores within the evergreen forests, speaking, I'm in Idaho, so we've got a lot of evergreens. Pardon my bias about how the trees, I'm not a botanist, I'm not an arborist, I don't understand all the fundamentals of this. But as I understand it, the way that the spores that create future generations of evergreens is partly based on the heat and the exposure of those seeds. It requires a fire, basically, for those seeds to release from the pine cones. That's amazing to me, right? So, I mean, that's fascinating and scary, right? It's dark and light, right, at the same time. No one gets out of here alive. Remember that bubble we started off with? That's the part of us that is beyond our humanness, beyond the name that you currently go by. And yeah, I'm hesitating whether we're going to go right there, but yeah, we are, because it's quite the portal. Okay. That bubble of energy, it can't pop. It's indestructible. And it's always there. It's like your ride, no matter where you are. And even the layers of you that are beyond aware, that are beyond a space and time, or a time and space. This bubble of energy is infinite. It's eternal. And at its truest state, as the ride of your eternal self, there's nowhere that it's not. Wow. Wow. Now, I know some hearing that and playing with that idea as possibly true. Can feel insignificant at that idea. But hey, you've got a bubble and you've got a human. And humans can be used for multiple things. Your human can be used, applied, dedicated, animated for so many different things. For darkness, for light, for, The list is so long. So another way to look at it, well, what we talked about with your eternal self and the omnipresence and the infiniteness of you, while you're also here at the same time in your humanness, okay, is that it's exciting that, oh my God, so I'm not trapped here. I'm not here to suffer, although I may suffer, right? There's levels of gloriousness that maybe I've seen peaks of in my life, or maybe I have sensed is there, but I don't know how to get at it. Yeah, welcome to the club, right? We're in a dark age. There aren't a lot of resources. There's very few resources for how to tap into the gloriousness of you and your life. But one thing I can tell you, the way that you normally go about uncovering a hidden anything would be looking for expertise, looking for maybe texts, wisdom, teachers, right? And what I've noticed is that a lot of people spend their lifetimes, or at least big portions of and like eras of their life, their human life, searching for something outside of themselves that will help them tap into, maybe more consistently or more regularly or just at all, that gloriousness that they sense or want to be true is within them. So I would offer that a better way to do this, to unleash this gloriousness within you, is to consider that it's there, play with the idea that it's there, and just start trying shit out, right? If any of you have any record from your own sense of self of, that was pretty good right there, that was pretty great, that was pretty gloriousness, I mean, that was horrible, that was pretty glorious, right? My guess is you didn't have someone holding your hand. You weren't reading in a book, step 1, step 2, step 3. It just kind of happened, right? It happened spontaneously, right? It possibly, I would venture to say, likely happened in a moment where you were excited, where you were feeling empowered, like you matter, and that you were meaningful and relevant enough that the idea or the notion or that version of you that you were being in that second and in that experience, that you were capable of that, and that you didn't need anyone's approval. You didn't need anyone holding your hand at that. It was just there, and you went for it, or you got out of your own way and you let it happen. Yeah? So it's more experimentation than anything else. I love to create a system in my life as Jill where I'm basically I don't want to use the word forcing because it makes it seem like tricking. That probably isn't that much better. Anyway, it works well for me to set up a system where people are counting on me and I'm counting on me to show up in a way that is better than my 5 human sensory sort of Jill, which I don't hate her. She's not locked in the closet. I actually like her for the most part, most of the time. Most of the time. But what if you just scheduled it? I mean, what if and let's maybe not apply it to something that you're struggling with and you need glory to get you out of the struggle. What if it's more, because sometimes it happens when you don't need it, right? But what if instead you sort of tee up this idea of what are you super excited about in your life? What matters to you in your personal life? Okay, not who's president, who's in office, right? Something more personal, more everyday, more tangible to you. You can see it, smell it, touch it with your 5 human senses, okay? Whatever that is. What gets you the most jazzed, if anything at all about your life? Where do you, and in that area, you're probably more primed naturally to show up in a way where you pleasantly surprise yourself. Yeah. Okay. So, what if you're a parent and you adore your children, or you're concerned about your children or whatever, but what if the role that you play in their lives, yes, can feel overwhelming. I'm a parent too. But what if it motivates you to like, damn, I don't want to just show up there. I want to rock it. I want to surprise myself at how good I can be in a version of me that no one taught me. That's better than my parents were. That's better than any dad or any mom I've ever seen ever. Right? That's perfect. That's a perfect scenario for your glory to be like, bah, you know what I mean? So, and you can, again, from a sense of excitement, right? What are you excited about celebrating in your children? Put aside if that's not your natural state. If you're normally a concerned, worried, it's my job to worry about my children sort of parent, then this would be a very different flavor of ice cream for you, right? You can just set that off to the side for a minute, because my sense is it's probably not doing a lot of good anyway. Okay, there's a radical idea. What if it's really not making the difference you think it will, or think it should be? What if it's not serving you like you think it? Anyway, I already said it. Set it to the side for a second. What are you excited about in your children? Right? Could be anything. Just grab the first thing. Have you told them that? Have you said that to them? Driving in the car, whatever. It doesn't have to be a big momentous sit down, hands on their shoulders, staring in their face. Have you said to them in a version of yourself that you may have never been before, I love you. And do you know what I'm super excited about right now when I think about you and your life and maybe even your future? I'm so excited about this thing that you do, or this way that you are. I just think that's so brilliant. I love that about you. And wow, just wanted to say that. Now that may sound weird, and we don't normally have I don't normally say things like that, but I just wanted to toss that up. My guess is you're going to get a hug back. Whether they're 5, maybe even 5 months old. The responses I got from my children when they were way earlier than any parenting or child development book would tell you, the responsiveness. You got to go with what you see, right? Versus what the experts say. Anyway, 5 months old, 5 years old, 15 years old. Maybe your child is 50 years old. Doesn't matter. Do it. Do it. And let their response be their response. This isn't about how they take it. This is about you doing it. You letting you get excited about something in someone else. For those of you that aren't parents or are no longer parents, I know personally several people that have lost their children. Hugs to all of you, by the way. Can't imagine that. But even if you've never been a parent or are no longer a parent of that being, there's probably somebody in your life that you could get excited about that is in your personal life where you can put your hands on their shoulders, or at least look them in the eye and say something to them. Even if it's on camera, even if it's on a Skype call or FaceTime or whatever. They'll hear it in your voice too if it's just a phone call. Maybe it's a parent. We've all got parents, some still alive, right? Maybe it's a sibling. I don't care who it is. Just pick somebody. And then notice how you feel in that experience of you being vulnerable, letting yourself tap into something that truly is exciting to you. Some of us suppress excitement in our lives because somehow we've had this idea that it's not cool to be excited. Dark age, I'll chalk it up to dark age. How about that? That it's not smart to get excited. That it's, I can think of so many pockets of society where excitement is not a valuable trait, and what the fudge, right? What's wrong with us, right? Oh my God. Anyway, okay, you get it. Yeah. Letting yourself get excited is part of the on-ramp to the portal of glory that is available to you. Portal of genius, portal of greatness, call it whatever word you want, right? If glory feels too Christian to you, I don't have an aversion to it. I also don't have an aversion to the word God. I reclaimed it about probably 7 years ago, and I said, you know what, the Christians don't own the word God. I still like the word God, and I'm going to use it. So there we go. And I mean, for those of you that may be listening saying, wait, she's not a Christian, let's put it this way. I don't consider myself a member of present-day Christianity for some of the reasons that I mentioned earlier. But I feel a closer personal connection to Yeshua, to Jesus Christ, than I ever did as a Christian. I'm compassionate towards those that are still members of the Christian faith. I think they've got a lot wrong right now, and they're really, really busy telling so many others what they're doing wrong. I get that. Definitely I get some of that preachy judgment, hate, ridicule, criticism, whatever. I just delete those comments, because if they can't hear me and they can't feel the love of God for them coming through me, then I'm going to let that be their issue, not mine. And I don't feel responsible for making space on my channels or on my website for comments and things like that that are of that variety. They can criticize me all they want on their channels and on their Facebook walls, or if they have a website. But I feel no obligation or sense of, I just don't buy in to that idea that just because I make myself available on a YouTube channel, things like that, that I then am subject to everyone's criticism and that I just need to leave it there like graffiti on the side of my house. No. That's not a choice I want to make, and it is my channel. And YouTube features let me delete comments, so I do. I just do. Because I do look at it as graffiti on the side of my house, and it's my house, and I'm offering it. I'm offering this to you. So I have decided that it is my choice and how I want to respond to that. Do I wish that there was part of me that wasn't bothered by it? Yeah, I do. But I would be bothered by graffiti on my house, and I am bothered by comments of people that just aren't appreciating what I'm doing, or don't get what I'm doing, or are trying to make their point about why I'm wrong or why they're right or whatever. They can do that on their wall. I'm not preventing their free speech. I'm just not making space for it on the systems where I offer and share things. Yeah. You may want to try that on too, for those of you that share things publicly. Or, here we go, those of you that may want to share things publicly, but you don't because you don't know how you'd handle, or you don't want to have to face the shade or the hate or whatever. Maybe you don't have to. What if, I mean, you could do it any way you want. I don't remember anyone modeling for me. Again, no one held my hand with how I do this. It just felt right to me. And I'm one of those people that I don't wait for an authority figure or some other expert or leader to show me how it's done. Or, I mean, I'm more likely the type, and I know some of you are this way too, that when you see somebody doing something that may be really successful, or they've obviously made it through some hoops and seem to be getting some traction or success or whatever your sense of all this is, making a difference in the world, we actually, it's not that we criticize it, but we're like, oh, that's interesting how they do that. I wouldn't do it that way. Some of us are just so naturally individual and naturally independent and naturally distinguished in our bubble, that this is my bubble and that's their bubble, and I can see what they're doing and go, oh, I wonder if that would feel right for me. Oh, let me try it out. Oh, actually, no. I don't like that part. And then we can customize it, right? We don't ask for permission to customize what we do, how we do anything. We just do it and we see how it goes, right? I do believe we're a minority, though, in the population. I have no data to support that. I'm just based on observation in the world. I think there's very few of us. And I love, I love it. I love to cheer on those that are like this, and also cheer on that sense of independence and really personal sovereignty to make your own choices and make your own you in the kind of chicken and egg process there. Championing that within those of you that maybe don't come by it as naturally, that are sort of maybe always feeling like you're on the sidelines, waiting for your turn. I don't think this world is going to hand you your turn. I don't think this world works that way. Number one, it's distracted by anything and everything. So waiting for this world to invite you into a game of your glory, I don't think is going to happen. And that doesn't mean necessarily you have to fight for it, but it will require you to show up in a way that no one can teach you. Right? So we're back to what we were talking about earlier with the experimentation. But human life it's literally finite. There's the mortality is, we're all mortals in this way of our humanness. So your ride right now for this life that you and I are interacting through, right, is the one you have to work with. And I don't want to say it's all you've got, but it's all that matters in what you're currently working with. So, yeah. So what is supporting you right now in your life in experimenting with a version of you that you go, shit, damn, glad I showed up. Glad I took that ride. Glad I showed up as Joe or Tom or Mary or Connie. I'm so glad I did that. There was some suffering, but I'm glad I did that. The reasons that lead up to you being able to say, I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I was that me. I'm glad I incarnated. I'm glad I went there in a dark age. The reasons for you being satisfied or even delighted with how you showed up, those reasons are 100% personal to you. The other part related to this being a dark age is that the reasons that make you stand back and reflect on your life and go, nice, very good, very good, me. Glad I did that, right? This world may totally ignore you. They may not even notice the glory going on in you in that moment, right? But you'll feel it, and that's what we're going for right now. That's the right focus for now, anyway. Others may notice, and that's great, but they may not, and they're likely not to, right? So there's so many twisted distortions in our perception of what glory looks like, right? I have my usual examples I like to trot out. Yeshua being one. for me, when you look at the account of what happened in his life, I would not say that his version of glory was accepted, at least not widely. They were like a minority cult that was sort of following him. But it wasn't a cult because they were free to come and go, and there wasn't the weird, it wasn't, well, was it? Yeah, it was still in the Dark Age paradigm. Anyway, I don't like that we just called it a cult there. And Yeshua was like, it's not bothering me, just keep going. Okay, it's a minor point. We can distinguish about that later. It wasn't a cult, but a cultish following, or like in a pop culture sort of reference of a cult following. Anyway, they were the minority. And he was murdered, right? And I definitely believe the timeline, ooh, crown chakra itch, that he was murdered. Not to save us from our sins, though. That's the Christian view, right? Love you, Christians. Okay, I think you got that wrong, though. And you can be mad at me about that, and I'm okay. You can be mad at me all you want. If that's how you want to use your life and activate your glory is by being mad at me, then have at it. I don't think it's going to go well. Okay? Anyway. Okay, we're moving on. The other example, in a very non-religious context, but very divinely inspired, was Van Gogh. Right? Oh my God, Van Gogh. So Vincent Van Gogh. I don't know how many of you read the biography about his life. Didn't say that. The biography on Van Gogh called Lust for Life. I don't remember the author, but what a wonderful sort of foray into his version of suffering. And then so you read that book, and I do believe it's mostly accurate. I'm feeling a sense that it's 80 to 90% accurate enough. He just said to get the gist of his life and what he experienced, and his brother Teo, his older brother, supporting him financially and in so many ways, and just how much he struggled. And yet now, post-death, right, post-mortem, we look back at what he did in the midst of his suffering, right? So there was the suffering, and then there was the glory right next to it, right? God, it's just so... It's the perfect example. Thank you for this. It's the perfect example of what we're talking about. His life sucked in a lot of ways, and still there was the glory because he was so passionate about the painting. He wanted to call himself a painter. He wanted to be with artists. He wanted, not painter, yeah, he wanted to be an artist. He wanted to be called an artist. He wanted to be known as an artist. He wanted to be famous as an artist. He wanted to be regarded by the fellow artists that were of the Impressionists, and I think at that time, I'm not an art history major, but I think I got that right. Anyway, so his friends and things like that were Gauguin, etc., that were known artists, recognized artists, paid artists. Where were we going with that? Maybe it doesn't matter. But anyway, he wanted that and he didn't get it. But his passion, thank you. You just said passion. Okay. The passion to live his life as the artist he knew himself to be. I'm so glad he did that. I'm so sorry that he suffered in the way that he did, but I'm so glad he was strong in his sense of, no, I'm an artist. I can do this. I'm going to do this. He didn't love his work as much as we do. But it was a sense of artistic representation of the inner vision of how he saw, the starry sky in Arles in France, amidst the absinthe that was flowing through his system that night, etc. Yeah, it's so amazing, isn't it? So whether you leave a legacy or not, whether the world notices or not, whether you get praise for it or validation for it or not, start with doing it for you. And just like we talked about in that example of letting yourself get excited about someone else's life and then actually expressing it in some meaningful to you way where you actually say it versus just think it, or think it on such a low level of yourself that it's not even in your consciousness because it's fighting for space with all the things you're worried about with that person, etc. Okay? Yeah, that's cool. It's a great place to start. And once you get the feeling of it, it's like, oh my God, this feels so good. You'll feel more glorious more of the time. And that doesn't mean that it's going to crowd out the darkness within you, right? I just had an example this morning where and I'm just saying, does it matter? And Megan's like, not really, don't go there. Okay. There was a moment in an interaction with somebody that was trying to help me at a tree nursery, a gardening center, picking out trees. And she wanted to explain something and I didn't want to hear it. I didn't need the explanation and I kind of already knew what she was going to say. And I'm like, I'm doing it anyway, Mango, sorry. Sorry, not sorry. But I heard myself saying, as I was noticing I was getting irritated, that she was going to explain something I already knew. And I didn't need her to apologize or anyway, I said, I know, it's okay. I'm busy. I gotta hurry. I'm in a rush. And then she said, okay, she's over there waiting for you. And then I was like, okay, thanks. And then as I was walking away thinking, well, I didn't like myself in that moment very much. She was just wanting to explain something that they didn't do very well and wanting to kind of apologize again for it. It's a long story. And anyway, so that moment of me just being like, I didn't want to be there to approve the trees I'd purchased over the phone. I don't need to go look at the weeping sequoia. I'm good. They're going to guarantee it for a year anyway. And yes, they're all different and they're, but I was like, I didn't want to have to come out and approve this anyway, is what I was thinking, even driving out there on the other side of town. Anyway, so that sort of popped up in that moment. And there was a version of Jill that I didn't like very much, was not productive. I didn't even feel good about doing it. I actually felt worse about doing it. And then I was like, oh, okay, that wasn't very nice. And then I sort of let it go. I set it to the side like, and then I chose to be a bit more pleasant when I was picking out the trees, but I was still slightly annoyed. There was an undertone of still annoyance. And then I was like, saw the trees and I was actually did make different choices. So that was when I actually said to the woman helping me pick out, tag the trees to be planted next week, a week from today. I'm so excited. And I was like, I said, I'm actually glad I came out now because I do like these two better. And as she was switching them, she had no idea the whole backdrop and she doesn't need to. Anyway, it all turned out fine. But I let myself, I made an unconscious, subconscious choice of Jill in some of those moments of being a version of Jill that I don't like. I'm sure guessing she didn't either. But whether she likes it or not, I'm almost less concerned about because when I like my Jill, my life tends to go better. Yeah. And since my value system tends to be about, being loving and being inspiring and helping everybody do the best we can in this crazy world, and know more, hopefully, about how to be their best self, that what I like about me tends to be likable things on a even objective scale, not just a subjective scale. Yeah. Okay. The scale wouldn't work well for a psychopath, in other words. Luckily, I'm not a psychopath. I have no ill will. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Good. All right. So that feels complete. This went longer than I thought it did, actually. It's kind of interesting. Okay. So for those of you that are live, I'm going to check out the chats if you have anything to chat about there or anything you want to add. I do like to hear from you guys, or anything you want to ask if it's somewhat related. Otherwise, I just won't read it. But anyway, hey, if you want to share there, you can. I'll have a sip of my coffee. While you guys are doing that, I can talk a little bit about events. I have been interacting with John Burgos' team at Beyond the Ordinary about joining his summer season. So we're finding that calendar date to have that conversation with John, and I already have the plan for the special offer to do the Boise workshop. The recordings there. Oh my God, you guys. Oh, I'm so excited. I haven't even listened again to all the materials that that came through in that Boise weekend experience, but it was so, and somebody was saying that when we were, I think, having lunch, or I invited everybody on, everybody paying their own way, but I said, why don't we all just go to dinner? So we spontaneously found a place that could kind of take us all for dinner after the Saturday experience. And somebody said, wow, Jill, you just went right for it. I think in the first 5 minutes, we just started going. So I sensed, I guess in retrospect right now, there was a lot that we wanted to say. And there's a lot there. And it doesn't dovetail, but it adds on it's like another volume of wisdom and information and insights about literally the afterlife experience, that fits perfectly with sort of volume 1, which was the Afterlife Reveal, the Bridge of Light series, which is so, you guys, the information that the way that I am shown the afterlife experience is so contradictory to things that I've heard people talk about with the near-death experiences, NDEs, and that type of thing. What I am shown, again, I can't prove it, but they can't either, right? So again, here we just like, well, they're an expert. Says who? They're press person that helped them market a book and get on Dr. Oz, right? I'm not discounting their genius and their gloriousness, but just because that's their truth and what happened to them doesn't mean it's true, like the kind of true that's true whether you believe it or not, right? And their version of true may not be helpful to those here, and even worse, could be harmful. And I feel like that's an angle we haven't talked about. Shit. Yeah, hang on, just let me. How is it harmful to think that the afterlife is just all white light and love and like a pearly gate heaven Christian sort of experience? It's dangerous if it's not true. It's harmful if that's not how it works. It's more than unhelpful if it misleads those living and in the afterlife into a naivete about the complexity of diametrically opposed incentives that happen in the afterlife, not unlike they happen here. Yeah. So, there we are. Samson, baby? He's having a dream. Hi, honey. Cutie pie. Okay. Hi, Kaylee. And I'm going to turn off somebody's video really quick. Okay. Kaylee is saying, how does the Dark Age relate to human health? This might be a big one to answer quickly, but it's been on my mind for a while. That is a big question, but I do want to at least kind of throw a dart at it there. The Dark Age affects everything about this reality, and that doesn't mean it's not dark enough to push out the light, but it makes it harder and more challenging and more confusing to be the light that we are. It makes it harder to know what's fact and what's theory. It makes it harder to know what's a truth and what's a lie, even within ourselves. And one classic example I have of this is sometimes, like on social media, which I'm not on as much anymore, I just don't like it very much right now. And maybe I won't again, I don't know. I'm just minimizing my time there and enjoying the minimizing of my time there. But I'll see somebody say, like, just sort of maybe ranting about an ex or something, like, I never date, never marry a liar. And, something like that, which is, that's like, oh, that's true, never marry a liar. But what I like to point out is it's not only a bit more complex than that, lying is a lot more complex than that. Because most lies that are told, the individual doesn't know it's a lie. Liars don't know they're lying. Yeah, now some do. There's a pocket, right? An unmeasurable pocket of humans that enjoy telling lies. I tend to not like those people. I don't understand why, but they seem to, and some even admit to it. They like to create confusion and chaos. And I'm just like, oh God, I just can't. And it won't. It's just a totally different flavor of ice cream. Don't get it, don't understand it, don't want to condone it, don't want to support it, do not cheer it on, right? But so the idea that a lie is something that someone knows they're telling is like, oh no, no, it's far worse than that. It's even more confusing than that. So yeah. Okay. So health is definitely a part of that. Health and wellness. I mean, how easy is it to just do a little bit of research on how to, heal compromised intestinal gut lining, which the alternative health community calls leaky gut, which the AMA, the real expert, quote unquote, doctors will say, well, there's no such thing as leaky gut. Okay, I have permeable intestinal lining. Oh no, that's real. It's the same thing. We're talking about the same thing. How do you fix it? That's what we want to talk about. Let's stop arguing about what the fudge we call it. It's a real thing, right? Anyway, so how to heal leaky gut, right? You'll get 10 answers from 10 experts and 10 answers from 10 people that are convinced they've resolved it within themselves. So that to me says either we don't know or there's more than one right way. Yeah, it's going to require some experimentation. I know what worked for me though. The book, The Gut Balance Revolution by Dr. Gerard Mullen worked for me. And that I remember the moment that, yeah, should I tell the story? Sure, why not? I've got time. And I'll make time because this is important. I was feeling like crap. 3 years into menopause, I was actually maybe only 2 years into menopause because I was 47, I think at the time. I'm 49 now as of this time in space and time. And I went to a naturopathic doctor, an ND, because I'm like a lot of people that I have great doctors. I'm very blessed to have great insurance. But when your personal healthcare provider looks at your labs and says, "Yep, you're good," and you're like, "No, I'm not good. I feel like shit. Thank you very much." But they're like, "No, you're good," right? And I'm just like, okay, so you're not listening. So let me see who else that can help, right? And here come the rabbit holes. Cue the rabbit holes, and then the do sort of music, right? Anyway, so at some point I ended up in a naturopathic doctor's office who had all these great ideas about, it could be food allergies and all these things. So she had, I think, a set approach of this is how I help people figure out what's wrong with them. And then I start the walls of expensive supplements are right outside the door, and I can, a cute bag for you to bring them all home in. And I really believe that she believed that that was what was needed. So I got an intensive allergy test, and it said I was allergic. I'm not kidding, to almost everything I was eating. And divine synchronicity, I had some super healthy, very knowledgeable, and about 10 years younger, a group of friends that was staying at our vacation property. They were my guests up there, and I was joining them. So I had this box of supplements. I had the blood work lab results, and they were so loving and so kind, and just, oh God, I just love those people. And they were just like, because they knew I wasn't feeling well, and they wanted me to feel well too. And I'm sure they had their ideas for how to do that. Anyway, I mentioned the blood work, and one of them kind of went, I don't think she knows what we know. So Matt kind of looked at Daniel, and then Daniel, who was pre-med at Baylor, Rice? I think it's Baylor. Anyway, a very well-reputed university. He graduated pre-med. And he goes, he just said it so lovingly and so wise. He said, now, if you have, and I don't remember how he said it, but basically what I learned in that experience was if you have leaky gut, then pretty much everything you're eating is like leaking into your system, and it will show up on a test like this, because he asked, what kind of test is this? He was looking at it, and he said, a test like this, it's going to show anything in your system that's causing irritation, inflammation. But some of the if you have leaky gut, then almost everything you're eating is going to show up on a list of, you shouldn't eat these things. It's not, it's an incorrect assessment, because it's not the problem isn't what you're eating. The problem is that your body isn't processing in the way it ideally should what you are eating. Okay, so I wasn't allergic to bananas. I wasn't allergic to, spinach. Literally, it was just like, I'm allergic to everything I'm eating. And I drove the 2.5 hours up to our vacation property just so deflated. I walked with my box of supplements, and then I was like, oh, okay. So then I got excited, and then they had some other ideas, and then we just had fun. So I went back into the same ND's office in a follow-up visit or whatever, and I said, so what do you recommend for leaky gut? And I said, do you know what leaky gut is? And she goes, and she kind of sat back like this, and she goes, I do. And I said, do you know how to heal it? And she goes, no. She didn't know. And I think I literally said, okay, thank you for your time. I got up and left. I was convinced, and I think I was right, that my problem wasn't everything that she thought was my problem. My problem was that I had leaky gut. And again, this was like 3 years ago or something like that. So then I, got into, listening to health and wellness podcasts, Dave Asprey, Mike in High Intensity Health. I can't remember Mike's last name. Anyway, and I was like, okay, so what do these guys say? And it's even more confusing, right? And then somehow I heard, Abel James, The Wild Diet. What a beautiful man. I've never met him, but just a beautiful person. Not that the others aren't, but Abel James just stood out to me as just this lovely person. Anyway, so he had a guest, Dr. Gerard Mullen, on. Sorry this is going so long. You guys are still here. Okay. And I heard him in this interview, and it was just like, oh my God, what Dr. Mullen was saying was so resonating and really like, okay, pay attention, like, listen to this. He has something that may work for you. So I bought his book. I actually read the whole book. I rarely read a book cover to cover. I really read. Anyway, I followed that one, and literally within 5 days of following his thing, and it made sense to me. So intellectually, I was like, okay, this actually makes sense. And he's a gastroenterologist. John Hopkins, I know, is standing up for me. I can't remember what he does. Anyway, great. I just love what he had to say, and it worked. And within 5 days, I felt like I was coming alive again. So it's like, oh my God, this is good. So I stuck with it, and literally within 3 months, I was like, okay, I'm back, right? Now I should probably follow all of that again because it did work before and it could work again. But some of the other sort of tricks that I thought I figured out at that time don't work for me anymore. So keto is not working for me right now. And again, there's just so many possibilities. So here's my advice. For anyone that does not feel well, for anyone that knows that you could be feeling better, trust yourself. If your doctor or whoever you deem as an authority or an expert that knows hopefully more than you, that you think can help you out, if you don't agree with what they're saying, then don't agree with what they're saying. You can try out, right, what they want to offer or whatever. That's your choice. But they may not know the answer as well as they think they do, which doesn't have to mean they know that they're lying, right? But they might be lying, but not know they're lying. They may think what they think. They may think they are right and that it is true and that they can help you. That doesn't mean that's reality, even if you follow everything that they say to the letter. Okay? Yeah, this reality is way more complex than we give it credit. So I remember walking around thinking everybody would do great in a state of ketosis. And now I'm like, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe fruit is not the devil as much as a candy bar or whatever. Anyway, so I'm starting to kind of back off some of those ideas now that they're not working for me. And I am getting, I think, more wise and more mature in this idea that, you know what, just pick something that works. But okay, here's the advice. Do something, okay? Because I think a lot of us, we overcomplicate things and we're we're out there. Again, remember we talked about that gloriousness and that greatness. We can be out there sort of spending a life researching and searching and seeking and all these things. Meanwhile, you may not feel well. So what if you just pick something? Because picking something and doing with it, number one, it may work. Number two, it may yield some improvement, but at least you're doing something that's different than what you were doing yesterday. Because whatever you have been doing has more than likely, yes, played a role in the fact that you don't feel well, right? So when it comes to health, I do see this all the time related to food dogma, really, and nutrition dogma, and health and wellness dogma, and all these like, no, this is true, and okay, wait, now maybe that's true. What should I do? And doing nothing, not taking any actual like, okay, I'm gonna try this, and just don't listen maybe to anything else. Just do that. Just try it, and maybe give it 2 weeks, maybe give it longer, and just see if you start to feel better. I think with food, we radically underestimate the power that what you eat every day plays in your health. I know that was true for me, and I don't say that like like somebody that doesn't have darkness in myself related to food and nutrition, because I'm not in a season right now of my Jill of being dedicated or devoted to eating well. I tend to not be great at that. So when I have been good at it, I'm just like, oh my God, why don't I do this all the time? And there's probably a lot of answers. Maybe because cookies are good, right? And melted cheese on organic blue corn tortilla chips with fresh salsa is like heaven, especially when you get it with a beer. Oh man, yum, yum. That will always taste good to me. Okay. So maybe that's why it doesn't matter. The fact is, I'm honest enough with myself that I'm not doing what I know I should and could to feel better, but I'm also okay. So could I be better? Yeah. Am I perfect? No. Do I hate myself? No, I don't. I'm good at a lot of things, and sticking to a healthy eating plan is not one of them. But when I do it, I always just go, why aren't I doing this all the time? Anyway, okay, very good. So that's where we are. So Kaylee, I hope that helps. It relates to human health. It relates to everything. I do have a health story to tell you guys about at some point. I don't know when I'll do that, but it's around the advice of getting second opinions, advice of following your instincts and making choices with incomplete information, which, I mean, it's all of us, right? In that regard. Just go with what you got, but do something, because the mental kind of masturbation of trying to find the answer before you start to make changes, that will lead to further months or years or decades of not getting the improvement that you deserve. Yeah. Okay. And we do make things really hard because we're looking for perfection and all these things. Okay, Lisa says, thank you, Jill. Always inspiring, it and gives me validation to keep going with my life service and offerings. Yay! Oh, Lisa, I'm so glad to hear that. Okay. Hi, Kaylee. She's saying, yep, always helpful, Jill. Thank you. You're so welcome. And then another Lisa said, thank you, Jill, and a heart. Okay, good. All right, you guys, I feel like we should wrap up. And I need food. Speaking of food. Okay, and to those of you that are new here, I hope you liked it. And if you don't, that's okay. You don't have to. I meander. I totally own that. It's part of the maybe dark side. I was going to say downside, dark side of my not planning these messages. I just wing it, which yields some meandering, which may not be a match for some people. And I'm okay with that. I just want you to get, I hope you find something that does work for you. Okay. Like really work for you in being your amazing self. Because I know those ingredients are there, and hopefully you know that about yourself too. Okay. I love you guys. Bye-bye for now. Is there anything else? Oh, please subscribe if you haven't. I really appreciate that. It's been very fun to watch my channel grow. Yeah, it's been fun. And thank you. Anyway, I love you guys. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.